Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for your entertainment and amusement, Proxmox, version 5.3-5, up and running. Now let's find out how I did it. Well, howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse, another exciting video today. It's been about 7-8 months since I played around with Proxmox, and while I liked it initially when I played around with it 7 or 8 months ago, I ran into that age-old problem that Unky Joe seems to have with anytime I run a piece of software to virtualize servers. The big wall I come up against is the fact that I cannot get really good transfer speeds in a VM other than Hyper-V, and I've finally learned how to do it with ESXi as well with VMware. But when I initially did my Proxmox video 7-8 months ago, I ran into the problem where the Windows 10 virtual machine, a Windows 7 virtual machine, the disk transfer speeds were again around that 35 to 40 megabyte per second range. Now, I figured out how to overcome that, and I'm going to share that with you today. Now, the machine I've chosen to run this on is that Dell R710, one of the ones that I bought initially when I started my channel a couple years ago. And it has a 2 8-core 2.67 gigahertz E5640 Xeon CPUs in it, 40 gig of RAM. Now what I did was I took this machine is also running ESXi, it's my VMware machine, and it's going to be running Windows Server 2019, so I'll be doing a triple boot on this machine. But let's go over and take a look at the machine I'm talking about, and I can tell you how I've got everything laid out. So the top server is the one we're concentrating on. So right here I've got I'm going to try to do this handheld. This is a 500 gig serial ATA drive. This slot has got a filler in it. And then I have my 4 1 terabyte drives. Sorry about the horrible camera work. 1, 2, 3, 4 1 terabyte hard drives and a RAID 10 array. And the server is just singing along. And then, of course, below that is my production unit, the one that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then the one below that is the IBM. So that is the server we're installing Proxmox. Now, this one is also going to boot ESXi, and I'm going to come by later and put a SAS drive in down here so that we'll have the ability to boot off of that drive for Windows Server 2019. So I have a total of 6 drive bays on that Dell machine. What I did was took a 500 gig serial ATA drive, just made that my boot volume. I put that in drive slot 0. I've left drive slot 1 available to put another. I've got a SAS hard drive I can put in there to boot Windows Server 2019 off of. And then I took 4 of those 1 terabyte drives I had laying around. They're kind of trash drives. And I stuck them in the other vacant slots on the Dell. This has that HBA 200 controller in it, which just basically you can set up a RAID 0, RAID 1, or a RAID 10 array with that H200 controller. But I've just decided to give the drives over to Proxmox and set up a ZFS RAID volume to store my virtual machines on. And that is part of that learning curve as to why I was having so much trouble with the previous version of Proxmox, is because of the way I had my virtual machine storage drive configured. And we'll go into that as the video goes along, but suffice it to say I've been able to create a RAID 10 ZFS array with those 4 1 terabyte drives. It gives me about 2 terabytes of storage on this unit, and it's fast enough to run VMs off of. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do an install of Proxmox. You can go back and look at my previous video from 7 months ago. I'll try to put a link down in the comments section if I remember. If I don't, you guys remind me in the comments section. But I'll put a link to that video that shows you how easy it is to install that. Now granted, I've never installed Proxmox on one of these Dell or IBM servers that I have, because I just didn't want to go all in on it. So my previous install, I think I did it on an i5, quad-core i5 processor with 16 gig of RAM. But now it's on a real dedicated enterprise-grade server because I wanted to put this thing through its paces and let you know. I've had a lot of requests from a lot of people too, since I've been doing all these videos on servers, Server 2019, VMware. I even did one on XCP-ng, which I have running. I still have an XCP-ng server running. I showed you how we put the orchestra software on there. And that's the whole idea behind my lab, is I want to be able to play with all this stuff and see which hypervisor I like the best for my needs. So we'll start up here at the data center view, and basically the idea behind Proxmox is it's very easy with Proxmox to set up a cluster that is more than 2 servers, 2 or 3 servers. They could be identical, they can be different, but it gives you some failover capability, and we're not going to cover that in this video, but that is one of the great benefits of Proxmox and XCP for that matter. You can easily create a cluster of servers to spread your load on. Now, one thing you are going to notice, and this is because I have a ZFS RAID 10 array set up, is that it uses quite a bit of memory. Of the 40 gig I have available. You can see right now I've got one virtual machine running that I'm doing some updates on, and that's a Windows 2016 server. Up over here at the upper left, you can see that running over here. But if I were to shut down that machine, this thing still uses between 8 and 10 gigabytes of memory, and I believe that is due to the ZFS volume I have, because you need to have a lot of available RAM for ZFS. So if you're wondering why I have so much memory utilized, you can see that there. So it's not a bad little, dashboard here. You have your cluster options here. You have options on the data center. Here's my storage. As you can see, I've got a local drive. This is part of that 500 gig SAS or serial ATA drive, and is divided up to local directory storage for the ISO files and for the dump file and the backup files, and then it created a thin type of storage of the remainder of the drive, and then I have a main store, which is my ZFS volume. So if we come here to the Proxmox and go to the settings, you'll see my current CPU usage, load average, IO delay, how much RAM is in use. So I've got a little less than half of my RAM in use right now, and that's running one VM and ZFS. It gives you my hard drive space of the root. This is where the ISO images are stored. Swap usage tells you how many CPUs, what Linux kernel I'm running. I have done no updates to this because I'm not part of the update package, and I wanted to get this up and running and do a backup of it after it's stable before I try to do any updates. And we'll do another video on how to do updates. I just really want to go over the settings right now. And then you can see my CPU usage over the last hour, memory, server load, network traffic, etc. When I installed Proxmox, it detected all my network cards, my HBA adapter, everything automatically, including my Mellanox 10 gig networking card. So it appears everything is on there. But you can put some notes in here. One thing I really like is the fact that you can get shell access very easily. And then my system settings are down here. So here are my network devices. 1 through 4 are my Broadcom 1 gigabit network cards. As you can see, one of those is in use. And then the ENP7SO is my Mellanox card. One thing I will tell you here is there's really no way to go in and determine what card is which on here. There's no way to edit the drivers or anything like that. It would all, keeping in mind this is a Linux operating system, we would have to go out to the shell command to do a catalog of the network adapters, but we'll do that for another episode. The time is set here with server time. Then any updates, of course, I'm not part of the upgrade package deal. It costs about 80 bucks a year to get the updates directly from the Proxmox people, but I'm going to look into that. The big deal here is my disks. So as you can see, I've got this is my USB drive that has VMware ESXi on it. This is the SDB, this is the 500 gig serial ATA hard drive that I have in there, and then these 4 hard drives, even though it doesn't recognize this as a hard drive for whatever reason, that I do have the ZFS volume on there, and you can see that they are quite a different discs. I've got a couple of Hitachis, a Western Digital, and a Seagate. And here's my LVM drive, how much is in use, how much is free. My LVM thin provisioned drive. Drive I have if I had directory, and then here's my ZFS volume. If I go to detail, it'll tell you it's a RAID 10, so it's got 4 drives in there. Our task history, and a subscription if we have it, which we don't have right now. So come back up here to the summary. Now I've already created some Windows 10 machines, so I have this one here. It's a Windows 10 Pro machine. I have installed it. I have installed the all of the drivers, the VirtIO drivers. I have done all the updates on it. And then after I created it, tested it, made sure it was running fine, then I just right-clicked and actually cloned it, and that's how I created this image here. Image number 102, or machine ID number 102. And it was very trivial, and you can see the hardware I have in here. I have a keyboard. I've given them 4 gig of RAM. I've given them four cores. Default display. I've got my VirtIO, my virtual machine hard drive, which is stored over on my main store down here. Let's see, in our options here, I've got the QEMU agent turned on. I have verified all of this is working properly. I have a Windows Server 2016 machine here, which is currently up and running. I'm doing updates on, and then I will do some testing on this. You notice it says the guest agent is not running because I have not turned on the service on the machine. And then right down here I have my other virtual machine, a clone of my first one, but you'll see it has identical hardware, cores, identical amount of memory. Has QEMU turned on, so I could go and view my task history, I can monitor it, backup replication, I could take snapshots of it, etc. So all is well, all is up and running, and so far I'm very happy with the results I've had. So here we are 7-8 months later after I did my initial Proxmox video, and I want to just tell you how I feel about Proxmox. I've always liked it. I liked it initially when I used it 7-8 months ago, but I just never could get the Windows installer configured properly. And part of that was due to the kind of storage I was using. If you use the drive that you install Proxmox onto, it uses a proprietary kind of disk format that can be really, really slow running virtual machines. In fact, when I initially created my Windows 10 virtual machine, it took me quite a long time just to get it installed. There were several times when I thought the screen had locked up on me, that I thought the machine had gone into La La Land, and I just needed to be patient and let it work through. So after I got my virtual machine set up, I immediately shut down Proxmox. I installed those 4 serial ATA drives in there, and then booted up and created a RAID 10 array. And RAID 10 is basically just 2 RAID 1 drives in a mirror, so that, you know, if you could have up to 2 drive failures and you'll still be protected. Now, there is no parity. I did not want to take the right hit for parity. And really, it doesn't make sense to put virtual machines over on a RAID 5 or a RAID Z1 or Z2, because you're going to have that abysmal transfer speeds because it has to write parity. So I have a couple of choices. I could either run the VMs off of an iSCSI share, which I have on my Synology, or I could set up the RAID 10, which is what I did. And let me tell you, as soon as I did that and then moved the hard drive image for Windows 10 to that RAID 10 array, it was like I was sitting in a physical machine again. So, and again, I'm not going to cover that in this video, but in the next series of videos that follow this, I will start showing you how I created a virtual machine, how I created my RAID 10 array, etc. And then you can be the judge of, of the speed that I'm getting. Normally what I would do on a machine like this is just connect it to an iSCSI share on my Synology NAS, or an NFS share even for that matter, and it would be faster than local storage. But anyway, back to why I did that, because like I said, for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the disk format it uses on the initial install disk, but it was not anywhere near as fast as it was running it off of this RAID 10 array. So that's what I did. Now I'm taking a little hit in RAM on doing that. This H200 controller also has the ability to set up a RAID 10 array. So I may experiment moving on. If I need the RAM back to the server to run the VMs, I may end up going out there and creating a RAID 10 array on the controller BIOS and seeing if that performance is equal to the RAID 10 array I've created using Proxmox. Now I will say this, the interface for Proxmox is no beauty. It's all written in Java and it seems to work well, but there's just a lot of little features. You know, when you come from Windows Server or Hyper-V, you're used to being able to go out through a GUI and view your devices and modify settings and stuff like that. And under Proxmox, under Linux, you have to go out to a shell and issue some commands, and that's okay. I'm willing to learn them. But, you know, coming from a Windows world over to this world, there is a bit of a learning curve. But I will tell you this, Proxmox was 100 times easier to figure out, set up, install, configure in a matter of a few hours than VMware ever can hope to be. And I did not need anywhere near the amount of help to get Proxmox installed, up and running, and configured as I did with VMware. And that doesn't mean VMware is bad, it's just, you know, but VMware is expensive. And we're all looking for alternatives for our clients and for our home labs to, you know, to VMware. The other reason I'm playing with Proxmox is because I'm told that you can virtualize Xmonology in there. So as time goes on, we'll see if that's actually the case. But so far, very pleased. This version is, it appears to be much more intuitive and stable than the one I used 7 or 8 months ago. Now, I have not done the updates on Proxmox because you have to go out and set up some repositories for it to go get the updates. I'm just not ready to do that yet until I get all my VMs created, get them stable, and I do a backup of the whole thing. So while we're at it, I just thought I would show you that I do have a virtual machine up and running. It's Windows Server 2016, and it is running under Proxmox, and it's currently doing the updates. Now, the other thing I really like about Proxmox is the fact that their console breaks out of the browser window, so that you can, you know, move it around wherever you need to while you're doing other things. So if you were to come over here, click on the virtual machine, and go to the console screen, you can see it brings up a console within Proxmox. Go back here to summary. But if you click up here on console, that's how it breaks out the console into a window where you can actually see what's going on. So, what are my initial thoughts? I really like it. I like it better than ESXi. I almost like it as much as XCP-NG. I will just tell you, just from my brief experience with both hypervisors, this has more features than XCP does. Now, there are other things you can do if you load Zen Orchestra on XCP. So, again, I'm not into bashing any hypervisor operating system. I'm just trying to tell you how I'm looking at them compared. One thing I do like about Proxmox is the ability to set up ZFS without having to have like a FreeNAS machine. So if you've got a box that has a lot of hard drives in it, you have a lot more flexibility. If you don't have shared storage, this could come in very handy with Proxmox, as opposed to XCP, and as opposed to like Hyper-V. But there are ways to set up shared storage in Hyper-V as well. But I digress. So I guess the long and the short of things is I'm impressed. I'm liking it. I'm using it. I'm going to get more familiar with it so I can teach you how to use it and avoid some of the pitfalls that you might encounter with Proxmox. So be sure to come up. I see us making a lot of videos around Proxmox moving forward. And now I'm getting my lab to where it is semi-permanent now. I have figured out how to triple boot between all these different hypervisors so that I can still have my lab environment the way I need it, but switch between things easily without having to do a complete server reload. So we think we have those ducks in a row now. So there you go. That's going to do it for this video today. I just wanted to get it out there and let you know I am working with it as promised. And we hope you found the video entertaining and informative as always. Please give us a thumbs up down below. Leave your comments. I love y'all's comments. Please keep them coming. I like answering your questions. If you have any technical questions, please keep them pithy, short, and sweet. Hey, I'm having a problem. It's not doing this. Whatever. You can put it down in the comment section, or you can send it to unclejoesplayhouse@gmail.com, and I will do my best to answer your questions. If I get inundated with it and I miss your question, I apologize, but I do have a life outside of YouTube and a business to run. So donate if you're so inclined. We take PayPal, we take Patreon, or join YouTube Premiere, and you'll get an ad-free experience, and then I still get a little bit of money. And make sure you come back and see us again. And don't forget, we'll see you, and 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 you on the other side.